This is the fifth part of 5 parts of the Passion history of our Lord Jesus Christ. This portion is titled, He Suffered Under Pontius Pilate. With this, Pilate went out again to the Jews and announced to the chief priests and the crowd, "I find no basis for a charge against this man." When he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate asked him, "Don't you hear the testimony they are bringing against you? See how many things they are accusing you of." But Jesus still made no reply, not even to a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor. But they insisted, "He stirs up the people all over Judea by his teaching. He started in Galilee and has come all the way here." On hearing this, Pilate asked if the man was a Galilean. When he learned that Jesus was under Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod. When Herod saw Jesus, he was greatly pleased, because for a long time he had been wanting to see him. He hoped to see him perform some miracle. He plied him with many questions, but Jesus gave him no answer. The chief priests and the teachers of the law were standing there, vehemently accusing him. Then Herod and his soldiers ridiculed and mocked him. Dressing him in an elegant robe, they sent him back to Pilate. That day, Herod and Pilate became friends. Before this, they had been enemies. Pilate called together the chief priests, the rulers, and the people, and said to them, "You brought me this man as one who was inciting the people to rebellion. I have examined him in your presence and have found no basis for your charges against him. Neither has Herod, for he sent him back to us. As you can see, he has done nothing to deserve death. Therefore I will punish him and release him." Now it was the governor's custom at the feast to release a prisoner chosen by the crowd. At that time, a notorious man named Barabbas was in prison with the insurrectionists who had committed murder in the uprising. "Which one do you want me to release to you, Barabbas or Jesus, who is called Christ?" For he knew it was out of envy that the chief priests had handed Jesus over to him. But the chief priests and the elders stirred up the crowd and persuaded them to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus executed. "Which of these two do you want me to release to you?" asked the governor. With one voice they cried out, "Away with this man! Release Barabbas to us!" Wanting to release Jesus, Pilate appealed to them again. "What shall I do then with Jesus, who is called Christ, the one you call the King of the Jews?" They all answered, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" For the third time he spoke to them. "Why? What crime has this man committed?" Then Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged. The governor's soldiers, led Jesus away into the palace. They twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on his head. They stripped him and clothed him in a purple robe. They put a staff in his right hand and knelt in front of him and mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They spit on him and took the staff and struck him on the head again and again. Falling on their knees, they paid homage to him, and they struck him in the face. Once more Pilate came out and said to the Jews, "Look, I am bringing him out to you to let you know that I find no basis for a charge against him." As soon as the chief priests and their officials saw him, they shouted, "Crucify! Crucify!" But Pilate answered, "You take him and crucify him. As for me, I find no basis for a charge against him." The Jews insisted, "We have a law, and according to that law he must die because he claimed to be the Son of God." When Pilate heard this, he was even more afraid, and he went back inside the palace. "Where do you come from?" he asked Jesus. But Jesus gave him no answer. "Do you refuse to speak to me?" Pilate said. "Don't you realize I have power either to free you or to crucify you?" Jesus answered, "You would have no power over me if it were not given to you from above. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin." As a result of this, Pilate tried to set Jesus free, but the Jews kept shouting, "If you let this man go, you are no friend of Caesar. Anyone who claims to be a king opposes Caesar." Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere. Wanting to satisfy the crowd, Pilate took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. "I am innocent of this man's blood," he said. "It's your responsibility." All the people answered, "Let his blood be on us and on our children." He then released Barabbas to them and surrendered Jesus to their will to be crucified. So the soldiers took off the purple robe and put his own clothes on him. They led him out to be crucified. You have heard the gospel of the Lord.